Hello, my name's Claire and welcome to my video blog. Well, I've got another one on the Brexit. Now we're starting to get into the reactions to this. Well, I went out earlier, I did that rather longer video than normal on titled Brexit Miracle, the Realm of Sauron is Ended, which is a quote from Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. And then it was rather a large file, so I left it uploading as I went out to do some shopping. Now, I go to a rather good Whole Food shop in Headingley, and I've been going there for many years. I went to a different branch of the same shop when I lived in another part of Leeds in the 1980s, and it's just a very good shop. I'm quite happy to endorse it. Anyway, so the young chap who's behind the counter on a Saturday afternoon last week, we had a little bit of banter about the EU. I bought I don't have it here, but I bought a Union Jack out tin of peppermints, which I thought was a nice little kind of gift. I bought one for myself and I bought one for my neighbour, and she's the lady who gave me a bottle of wine a miniature of wine last night, so we were mutually encouraging each other. And anyway, there was no, I sensed a certain tension, so I didn't mention anything about the Brexit. I did have this badge on, but I think that's fair game. And the till receipt came to something like, I think it was £13.89. So I often make jokes about this because sometimes it comes to like 10.66 or 1945 or something like that, and then I'll make some joke about the date because I'm into historical dates, and most people don't know these dates quite as well as I do. Excuse me, I'm just correcting the camera, it's a little bit wobbly. There we go. And so I said, oh, 1389, that sounds like some medieval date. I wonder who that was. Perhaps that was King Edward the First. Or I said, no, I think it was Henry. Well, Henry the Fourth, of course, came after 1380 something, so 1389. It was probably around about the time where Richard II was being deposed by Henry the Fourth, I think. So I made some kind of remark that, oh, Henry the Fourth, he was a bit of an unpleasant chap, a bit rough, a bit brutal. And then this lady who was standing next to me said, oh, well, oh yes, the young chap said, well, the world was a bit brutal in those days. And I said, yeah. And then this lady next to me said, oh, well, it's a bit like that today. So I said, oh, well, maybe that's just the way the world is. As a kind of realisation I've come to over the last few years, that however nice one is oneself, one cannot control how nice other people are, and that it's worth having teeth. So she said something like, well, the way Trump's behaving, or something about that, what Trump is causing. So I thought, oh God, I'm not going to put up with this. So I said, well, it's the Trump supporters who are getting the violence against them, isn't it? Sorry, I seem to have gone out of focus. And she said something like, oh, well, he's inciting violence with his racism and everything, and wanting to block Muslims. Well, of course, these are vastly oversimplified statements that they're making, these people make, social justice warriors. They make vastly oversimplified statements about things which are very complicated, and they won't accept critiquing of them. So I said, well, what's wrong with building a wall? Mexico has a wall on the Guatemala border to stop Guatemalans coming into Mexico, because she may not be aware, but conditions in Guatemala are presumably worse than Mexico, and so Mexico wants to stop Guatemalans coming in and degrading Mexico even further. So why shouldn't America want to do this? They've got something like 11 million illegal immigrants. A lot of these people are claiming free housing, free social security, free medical care, and all these things which the general population of the American blah 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 having to pay for. And then, oh, let's not even get onto Islam. I'm going to do plenty more videos about that. But these people, they just haven't got the kind of attention span to actually pay attention to things like, information. Actually, oh, what's this Islam thing? Right, okay. People say it's all huggy and religion of peace and stuff, and yet we've got all these, murders and bombings and stuff. So let's go and look at the material and see whether their material really does incite violence. And so I've been going through a series of highly detailed briefings by a security expert from America called Stephen Coughlin, and they're really, really detailed. But anyway, it demonstrates in a similar way to Bill Warner, Dr. Bill Warner. They're both people who have researched Islam in very, different kind of ways. Dr. Bill Warner just looks at the history of Islam primarily, but he also does get information from experts. And Stephen Coughlin, he focuses on the political and terrorist implications, which are quite massive. Anyway, I've been working my way through this, and the thing is, these people who try to defend Islam, they have no idea about this. And I shall be doing, as I say, more than one video in future about this kind of thing, about Islamic terrorism. I shall try and summarise some of the briefings I've viewed by Stephen Coughlin. It's absolutely immense stuff. The whole purpose of Islam designed to infiltrate and take over our civilization. It's a quasi-religious political dogma. That's what it is. But when you start, you can't. It's like, you're just speaking to somebody on the fly, and it's like a scattergun. Social justice warriors is like, oh, racist, oh, anti-Muslim, So I'm standing my ground. I'm saying, look, oh yeah, well, this didn't last very long talking about Trump. So she said, and she didn't see this badge because she was standing on this side of me, and this badge I had on this side. So she didn't say. So it's very interesting the way these people, they deliberately up the ante, like they say. Social justice warriors always double down. I didn't even used to know what that phrase meant, doubling down, but I know now. Because she doesn't stay on Trump very long. She says, oh, well, if you're defending Trump, then I expect you're one of these people who voted leave. And I said, yeah, I'm very proud of it. And so she's saying, well, I've been fighting for she's a lawyer. I'm a lawyer who's been fighting for equality, social justice, for all my life. She looked a bit younger than me. I suppose she could have been in her 40s. And I raised my voice back at her. I said, I didn't mention this. I didn't raise this subject. Don't harangue me about it. I didn't raise this subject. She mentioned Trump. She mentioned the Leave. She mentioned Brexit. I did not mention them first. This is what I mean. I've said before that if we are going to have these Remainers, these social justice warriors, if they're going to accept, there have been various politicians, they have said, yes, we must accept this decision. I read out the quotations from David Cameron's very, very dignified speech, which these people, they are not willing to accept. I mean, David Lammy today, an MP who I really don't have a lot of respect for several reasons that I'll probably go into on another time, he's now been saying that Parliament should ignore the will of the people, even though David Cameron, at the end of it, he has accepted defeat. He has accepted that this is going to happen. And he said, the British people have voted to leave the EU and their will must be respected. So people like David Lammy and this social justice warrior lawyer that I bumped into, they are still fighting a battle that they've lost. And they must understand it. The will of the British people is an instruction that must be delivered. These people are not real. They're kicking and screaming. And then, so I'm saying to her, look, You raised the subject of leave. You're attacking me because of what you think will be the consequences. I didn't raise the subject, so shut up. We won, you lost, shut up. Right? If we had lost, you would be lecturing us and you would be bearing down on us and you would be grinding your heel on the back of our neck for all eternity, just like George Orwell said. So I'm not impressed by this. And then it escalated further. I was very, very impressed by the young chap behind the counter, because he didn't get involved in this. I could sense that, you know, he was like, oh, he knew I was a leaver, and we'd chatted about this before, but he was probably a little bit taken aback because a lot of people really thought that Remain was going to take place and happen and everything. But he didn't tackle me on it, and I didn't press it upon him. I didn't force it upon him. I wouldn't do that to somebody. You know, okay, proudly wear my Vote Leave badge. But I'm not going to ram it down someone's throat. If they don't want to talk, if they don't want a subject to be raised, I'm not going to raise it, right? But if other people raise it, they've got to realise that we won. Leave won. There can be no doubt about the result. David Cameron, the Prime Minister of the British Parliament, there can be no doubt about the result. And then, so I'm wagging my finger at this woman saying, look, we won, you lost. I didn't raise the subject. You raised the subject. Stop whining. Get off my back. I didn't raise this subject. The former owner of the shop, who's now manager because it's gone into some kind of trust, he comes out and he looks at me and he says, shut up. I said, well, I didn't raise the subject. I'm only defending myself because this woman is attacking me. And he said, can you leave? And I said, I've been a customer here. You're going to tell me to stop being a customer? He said, how long have I known you? How long have you known me? And I said, oh, about 30 years. I've been going to his shop for about 30 years. Possibly slightly longer, 31 years, something like that. And I said, yes, I have been going to your shop. I've known you for about 30 years or so. And he said, well, my son-in-law or my daughter-in-law or something, one of his in-laws, is Portuguese, and now he's going to have to leave the country. And all because of you, people like you. And I'm going like, you know, this isn't about individual people. This is about, God, you know. And we didn't get into that because, frankly, he wasn't willing to listen. All he told me was, get out. I'm saying, well, I'm a customer here. I've just bought, you know, £13.89 worth of goods. And I'm there every week, and I buy an average of more than £15 of my groceries there every week. I'm a good customer, and I don't care what their political opinions are as long as they continue to provide good quality food and give me decent service. And I like the young chap behind the counter who was just an employee. He's not one of the managing, you know, people, and he didn't try to attack or harangue me. But obviously you can't control the customers. But if a customer starts haranguing another customer, and that while other customer starts defending themselves, then they should not attack the customer who's being attacked. So you can see that these people, the whole thing about the EU is you've got to be tolerant. You've got to be tolerant. You've got to join the EU because you've got to be tolerant. And these people are saying to us, you should be more tolerant. And they're hateful. So there's an awful lot of what I've seen referred to on Facebook and Twitter as social justice warrior Butthurt. I think these people have just got to get over. We are going to have to put up with kicking and screaming from these people. It's just something we have to do. It's like when you stop a child from having too much ice cream or you send it to bed early, it has a tantrum. Because you're imposing boundaries on it, and you presumably, you know, it didn't have those boundaries before. Now it's discovered there are boundaries, and then it has to, you know, and it didn't learn those boundaries before. So they have a tantrum, and eventually they realise those boundaries aren't going to change just because they have a tantrum. And this is what we're having. These social justice warriors, these people who are kicking and screaming, people like David Lammy, they haven't got it. And, you know, it's now looking, well, we're not going to let it be stolen from us. These people They want to take it away from us. They want to say, oh yeah, well, you know, only 4% lead. 4-point lead, 52% of the voting population, 72 point something percent of the electorate voted, which is considerably higher than the average general election, which I remember hearing the figure over the night that of the 35 million or so people who voted is more than any election since 1992. So more people voted than ever voted in the Tony Blair elections, and 52% of that 35 million voted to leave, which is massively more than the number of people who ever voted for Tony Blair, even in his first massive landslide in 1997. I haven't got the exact figures here, but 52% of 72% of the electorate has to be more than the 38 or something percent that Tony Blair got out of the 1997 election, which had a turnout of less than 1992, which was about the same as we had this week. So basically, it is the strongest mandate from the people that this country has had, I don't know, since probably Attlee or Asquith in 1906, something like that. This is historically, this is just a milestone that is so big. So we're going to have to put up with this, folks. We're going to have to put up with this SJW butthurt, this whinging, this whining, these sore losers. And I'm just really tremendously pleased that David Cameron had the decency and the honourable enough behaviour to say these things. That the will of the British people is an instruction that must be delivered, and that there can be no doubt about the result, and that our will must be respected. So I'm not going to back down from these people when they say these things to me. I'm not going to lay it on them. I'm not going to lay it on strangers. But if I hear people whining and claiming that we should stay in the EU and the referendum wasn't definite enough, I am not going to accept it. I had enough of these people. They manipulated it and everything. If it hadn't been for that dreadful incident with Joe Cox, and a lot of the other stuff, then we might well have, you know, hit 60%. And they're just whining that their tricks didn't win. And then, you know, people like Bob Geldof, you know, making obscene gestures at hard-working fishermen. It's disgusting. And these people are disgusting. And if you think that you can throw somebody out of a shop, a customer, you can throw a customer out of a shop because you don't like their political opinion, the fact that that political opinion was expressed in a way which had nothing to do with their relative who might have to go back to Portugal. And I'm quite certain that EU people are not going to be forced, you know, back on an aeroplane tomorrow. You know, it's going to be a very long process of disentanglement, and there's going to be very little force involved in this. So these people just need to get over it. It is the will of the people, and unfortunately we just have to put up with this kicking and screaming and tantrums. But that's life, as the conversation began in the Whole Food shop this afternoon. Yes, I think that conflict is the nature of the universe, and you know, I suppose it's just better to accept that there will be conflict, there will be people who will refuse to accept this, and that we will have to defend it. But this instruction is an instruction that must be delivered, and it will be. And I think that if the political parties in the Houses of Parliament refuse to deliver this, if they refuse to rubber stamp the will of the people, I think there could be a constitutional crisis. And I wonder if this might be something where the Queen might actually send the Prime Minister back to the House if he's not able to deliver it to her. And that's a true irony, isn't it? Because I've never been that keen on the monarchy. It does seem to me to be a slightly out of date and obsolete institution in many ways. But if this is the last recourse we have, and I think we know that Madge has expressed opinions, and I can't blame her. You know, you're sovereign of one of the greatest countries in the world, you know, sovereign monarch of one of the greatest countries in the world, and your people are voting to take that away from you and give it away. Oh, and then at the last minute, no, they say, no, actually, we'll keep that sovereignty, thank you, and her position is secured, so she can put this back to Parliament. If Parliament don't accept it, she can put it back to Parliament, and I think this would be the one constitutional power left to the monarch that actually would be of value, and it would be astounding. It would be an astounding piece of constitutional law coming into effect, that the Queen, the monarch, could actually find herself in the position where she defends the will of the people against Parliament. I mean, that would be, God, you know, it's kind of resonances of King John or something, or well, it's slightly back to front there, but I mean, this is like something out of, you know, constitutional mythology. So anyway, that's a whole other thing. We will push it through. These people, they have to get over it. We won, and the SJWs are going to kick and scream. They just have to get over it. We have expressed our will, and that will must go forward. So thank you for watching. It's a great joy, and it's just a pity to have these people snapping at our heels, thinking that they can overturn the will of the British people. There's a whole lot of stuff about where, you know, the implications of this, but I'll leave that for another time. Okay, thanks for watching. Rule Britannia. Britannia rules ourselves. Great. Thanks. Bye. Hello. My name's Claire, and welcome to my video blog. Well, I've got another one on the Brexit. Now we're starting to get into the reactions to this. Well, I went out earlier. I did that rather longer video than normal on titled Brexit Miracle, the realm of Sauron is ended, which is a quote from Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. And then it was rather a large file, so I left it uploading as I went out to do some shopping. Now, I go to a rather good Whole Food shop in Headingley, and I've been going there for many years. I went to a different branch of the same shop when I lived in another part of Leeds in the 1980s. And so I made some kind of remark that, oh, Henry IV, he was a bit of an unpleasant chap, a bit rough, a bit brutal. And then this lady who was standing next to me said, oh, well, oh yes, the young chap said, well, the world was a bit brutal in those days. And I said, yeah. And then this lady next to me said, oh, well, it's a bit like that today. So I said, oh, well, maybe that's just the way the world is. As a kind of realisation I've come to over the last few years, that however nice one is oneself, one cannot control how nice other people are, and that it's worth having teeth. So she said something like, well, the way Trump's behaving, or something about that, what Trump is causing. So I thought, oh God, I'm not going to put up with this. So I said, well, it's the Trump supporters who are getting the violence against them, isn't it? Sorry, I seem to have gone out of focus. And she said something like, oh, well, he's inciting violence with his racism and everything, and wanting to block Muslims. Well, of course, these are vastly oversimplified statements that they're making, these people make, social justice warriors. They make vastly oversimplified statements about things which are very complicated, and they won't accept critiquing of them. So I said, well, what's wrong with building a wall? Mexico has a wall on the Guatemala border to stop Guatemala. the till receipt came to something like, I think it was 13.89. So I often make jokes about this because sometimes it comes to like 1066 or 1945 or something like that, and then I'll make some joke about the date because I'm into historical dates, and most people don't know these dates quite as well as I do. Excuse me, I'm just correcting the camera, it's a little bit wobbly. There we go. And so I said, oh, 1389, that sounds like some medieval date. I wonder who that was. Perhaps that was King Edward the First. Or I said, no, I think it was Henry. Well, Henry the Fourth, of course, came after 1380 something, so 1389. It was probably around about the time where Richard II was being deposed by Henry the Fourth, I think. It's just a very good shop. I'm quite happy to endorse it. Anyway, so the young chap who's behind the counter on a Saturday afternoon last week, we had a little bit of banter about the EU. I bought I don't have it here, but I bought a Union Jack out tin of peppermints, which I thought was a nice little kind of gift. I bought one for myself and I bought one for my neighbour, and she's the lady who gave me a bottle of wine a miniature of wine last night, so we were mutually encouraging each other. And anyway, there was no, I sensed a certain tension, so I didn't mention anything about the Brexit. I did have this badge on, but I think that's fair game. And